Electronic voting changes. I also note on this one, Kyla can take the lead.
This is a big change.
Yeah. I know there's a 14-day requirement to consider and something about a 25% petition.
That's not even the big change.
Also, we need designated email addresses.
Let's go with the
Okay,
25%.
go for it. No, you take the
Okay.
lead, boss.
So, if I'm an association and I don't want to do electronic voting, which electronic voting is a third-party platform that allows you to vote online, so you can vote over the internet anywhere around the world for your board of director meetings, changes to your declaration, approval to borrow money, whatever it is that's a membership vote, you can vote anywhere online or anywhere around the world online. But you're a reasonably small association. Everything costs money, and it's more expensive to do that than to just do the regular limited proxy. So as an association, maybe you make the decision, we're not going to do this. Now the statute says if at least 25% of your voting interests petition the board to adopt a resolution to have online voting for the next election, the board must hold a meeting within 21 days after receipt of that petition to adopt the resolution. And then the board must receive the petition within 180 days after the last scheduled annual meeting. So you've got a 6-month window after the last annual meeting to send in this petition. And then if the board receives this petition, it's got that 25%, then the board is now required to adopt online voting for the next election. Now, it's interesting because it says election. It doesn't say the next membership vote. I think they use that word because we know that there's supposed to be an election every single year.
We had an interesting situation. The third-party election, first off, I'm a huge fan of online elections and larger associations. And up until recently, I'm now on the fence about third-party e-voting for contested elections. I liked it. In the past, I've always recommended it because it kind of gets us out of the middle, to be honest. Because the management company is hired by the board, and there will always be a perception that and the fact is if you look at the contract, and we have to do this by law, the board gives the management company direction. Like our contract actually will say the president of the board officer will be the one that's giving the instruction to the management company. So what we've seen happen is we had a situation, this was very recent, where an association, we knew it was going to be a contested election, and the board had already decided they were going to go with having a third-party company. I forgot who it was, but it was one of the more reputable ones. That company became so upset with the email volume they were getting from the owners that they backed out. And so we had a conversation with them, and they agreed that they would stay in if we hired a third-party election monitor. So this was, again, it was a very contested election. Pick up my little box. I have a little box that helps me see if you guys can hear us or not. And so I wanted to keep an eye on it. What had happened was this was a contested election, and there was association appeared to be split into two camps of almost 50%. And there was concern on both sides that there was going to be cheating in the election. They were getting, I would say, and these were some pretty upset emails, and there were probably 8 or 9 each day that were coming in to us, and they started carbon copying. I don't want to give their name, but let's say it's Ballots R Us. So Ballots R Us is getting these emails, and they're basically saying, we hold Ballots R Us responsible for this, and there was a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Ballots R Us became upset and said, listen, we don't want to have anything else to do with this thing. We're canceling our contract, which is a real problem.
It is a real problem.
We don't know how we're going to respond. So there was a phone call that happened. They had sent that email, I think, to me as the owner of Newell, actually. And so we had a conversation with their representative at the time, and the representative said, okay, we're going to send an email and say that you have to hire a state-certified election monitor to handle this, and everything has to run through them. So we hired the state-certified election monitor, and we got through it. Afterwards said, listen, we don't ever want to work with these people again. We're done. We're not going to do this again. And I think the election monitor basically did the same thing too.
Yeah.
But what it caused me to realize is that if you have a heavily contested election and you're relying on that third party,
I think it depends on what it says in the contract.
well, if it's a 30-day notice and your elections material went out 60 days ahead of time and they're getting this stuff now, they're canceling and you've got a problem.
Yeah.
So I still think electronic voting is great, but my encouragement to all of the Newell folk would be, if you are doing electronic voting, make sure you have a contract that says you have like 90 days to cancel you or something.
Or they can't cancel if there is an election that's ongoing that's going to be, within 90 days or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else do we have on that? Oh, the designated email address. We skipped all over that.
About that, because this new provision says, unless the association has adopted electronic voting. So if you adopted electronic voting, you don't have to worry about this. But if you have not, the association is required to designate an email address for receipt of electronically transmitted ballots. Electronically transmitted ballots must meet all the requirements of this subsection. What does this mean? Well, if we don't have electronic voting, where you can vote for a contested election online, inevitably what is required in a condo association are these envelopes. And these envelopes with a ballot going in the ballot envelope going in the outer envelope, writing your name and your information and signing the outer envelope. The GDPR rules say if you don't sign the outer envelope, or if you do a whole bunch of stuff that's not right, you invalidate the vote. And so there were several elections that I have been part of that, I mean, first of all, I hate invalidating votes because I want people to be able to vote for whomever wants to be on the board. But if you're not following the rules that are very regimented, by the way, but if you're not following the rules, I'm going to invalidate your vote. And so the legislature basically said, let's throw that out the window. The legislature now says, if you don't have electronic voting, which would allow you to vote online, then you have to designate an email address for the receipt of electronically transmitted ballots. In the past, you were not allowed to email your ballot to anyone because you had to do the envelopes. Now it says, if you do not have electronic voting, now you can email it to this designated email address. And so now we've basically thrown these envelopes out the window. You can now email your ballot to this designated email address, which I think is a pretty large change to the way elections have been done for years and years and years.
And to go back on it, because I'm sure we're going to talk on this, we always do, we have our annual meeting simulation, which actually Kyla comes to as well.
Yeah.
I think Elvis Presley won last year. I can't remember.
Or Taylor Swift.
It was Taylor Swift. I can't remember.
It was a T Swift year.
Yeah, we had a runoff maybe. I don't know. So if I email in my ballot on Monday and I change my mind and I email on Tuesday, the Monday ballot's the valid one that came into the email.
Yes, I think.
We'll have that for sure by the annual meeting simulation.
The GDPR rules today for these envelopes say we are taking the first received envelope.
But
I say I think because I'm using the same rule, but I don't know because it doesn't specifically say that. It does say that if you're going to, so previously the format for our ballots, they were pretty bare bones. The name of the association, date, time, location of the annual meeting, and then the folks who are running in alphabetical order. But now if we're going to allow people to email stuff to you, it does have now a space. So a ballot that's electronically transmitted, not e-vote, but emailed to that email address, must have a space for the unit owner to type his or her unit number and also their name, which also functions as the signature for the owner for the purposes of signing the ballot. And then this statement, waiving the secrecy of your ballot is your choice. You do not have to waive the secrecy of your ballot in order to vote. By transmitting your completed ballot through email to the association, you waive the right of secrecy of your completed ballot. If you do not wish to waive your secrecy but wish to participate in the vote that is subject of this ballot, please attend in-person meeting during which the matter will be voted on. So our format's going to change for our ballot because we have to have that there in case somebody wants to email it to us. I think more importantly, we have to have an email address that is accessible by management to make sure, because the unit owner may transmit his or her ballot no later than the scheduled date and time of the meeting during which the matter is voted on. So if we're going to have an annual meeting at 6 p.m., we need to have a computer, likely a printer, for all of these ballots that are sent electronically.